You're listening to the Wealthy Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Klein, and the founder of the Wealthy Lawyer Squad, a community specifically curated for law students and lawyers who are ready for more success, wealth, personal growth and wellness, and ease in their legal career. With the tools and strategies I teach in the squad and that I've implemented in my own career successfully, I want you to get ready to approach your legal career in a whole new way and live a life you never imagined. I'm a former big law attorney, entrepreneur, law firm owner, and success coach for law students and new lawyers, and I am here to support and inspire you on your journey in the law every step of the way. Let's go, squad. Welcome back to the Wealthy Lawyer Squad podcast. I have been waiting for this episode for a hot minute. So today's going to be a little different from prior episodes. I'm here with my law partner, Kristen Landon, who you guys have met in a former episode, episode 1 of season 2. And we've been kind of plotting and planning for a while of doing a podcast episode that's much more conversational and informal and just kind of talking about our journey, you know, how we met and our journey through law school and becoming attorneys, and then now currently being law partners and co-founders of Flourish Law Group. So this is going to be more like pulling back the curtain and just kind of chit-chatting about our journey and our life and money and therapy and trauma and businesses and like all the things. So if you want the full bio on Kristen, and we all know Kristen loves bios, go back to the first episode of the season and you can learn more about her background. But I'm sure it'll come up, you know, today throughout the episode as well. But it's also really cool that we're doing this episode right now because this is, I think this weekend is technically, today's Friday, going into the weekend is our 20-year friendship anniversary. So I feel like romantic anniversaries are very celebrated, but I think platonic friendship anniversaries are just as important. So happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you.
So let's go back. Let's take it back, 20 years. Mm-hmm. What were we doing 20 years ago?
Who were we? We were little babies. We had our little carts and we were rolling them into our Epsilon little dorm room that was probably like 10 foot by...
Oh my God, I don't know. We could hold hands. We would sit in our dorm on our beds, like our two little...
We could recreate it now.
We would literally do that and be like, wow, this room is small.
Yeah. No, it was good. And it's so weird because, you know, when I see like the back to school shopping and like the dorm room stuff that you see in like Target or whatever, it kind of does bring me back to that moment where I was so excited and just the thought that it was 20 years ago. We actually just had a 20-year anniversary. I didn't go to it, but for my school, and it's weird to think 20 years.
I know. I don't know how it's possible because we're only 22. It's really weird, but we were really young in college. Right. I know. Yeah. It's so crazy. And just to think like, you know, sitting in the dorm, we would talk about like, we want to be real estate investors and we want to build a business together at some point. And like, I know you were talking about going to law school. I was thinking, I think I was a psychology major at that point, but I really was always fascinated in money, which is funny because now we're trust and estates attorneys and I coach law students and lawyers partially on money mindset. But it's just so cool to think back. And I don't know, when you were just talking about like all the back to school stuff and like decorating the dorm, I was thinking about how at that point I had just gotten my first credit card. Yeah. Do you remember? And I had like all that Hawaiian like
the pink like comforter.
Yes.
Yeah. Yours was like so bright on your side and I had like a beige comforter. It was very comfortable, but it was a funny like contrast between the two.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, it was fun and it was only one semester and then you left me.
Yeah. I know. And then before I left, though, was when I ran up a credit card when I bought all that stuff. And I remember my mom being like, because I think it was a joint credit card at that point. And she's like, you've spent like $1,000 on decor. And I was like, I don't know. I just had this piece of plastic and I just put things on it. Like I had no idea really about the concept of money. I had been we both have worked since 14?
I was 16 when I got my first job. I worked for the grocery store. And I worked for that same store all the way up until I graduated college. So
yeah, that's right.
I definitely stayed for a long time. And I had a pretty decent, mature money mindset when I was really young, just because I didn't grow up with much money. But I got my first credit card when I was in college too. And I remember they're not allowed to do this anymore, but they were like, do you want a free little teddy bear that says college on it? And I was like, yeah, give me that teddy bear. What's my credit limit? Like $300? I don't know what it was, but yeah. I know it was a small one. And, that's when I started building my credit. And, I had pretty much a full-time job in my freshman year. So, yeah.
And then I didn't stay at the college that we met, and I left. And, I remember like falling in love with you immediately. And we were like, hey, we need to stay in touch. But, like how often do people say that? But every year, we were talking about this last night at a happy hour, every year we would see each other at least once a year. Yeah. I don't know if there was every year, it was only once, maybe
I'm not sure.
Handful of times. At least I would say twice a year. And then, some years we would see each other more. And then traveling, you went to Australia and I didn't go with you, which is like a huge regret that I have. That was still college.
I think it was my junior year or senior year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And I didn't go because I was with a stupid ex-boyfriend, and I was like, I had bought a condo, which was so stupid. And I was like, I have to pay a mortgage now. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
Trying to pretend I was a grown up, but then I did follow you to some other study abroad.
Right. So I had a habit of doing study abroad, and I didn't really get to travel much when I was younger. So when I got older, I thought, hey, like, why not take these opportunities and then, use schooling as an excuse to be able to visit these places and stay for, an extended amount of time. Yeah. There's not like a whole lot of opportunities, I think, where you can live somewhere for 5-6 months and kind of immerse yourself. And so I kind of jumped on any study abroad they would let me.
Yeah. And then I was like, I'm going to follow along, because I did one in law school. Which I've talked about. We talked about in our episode, and I talked with Brittany in our solo episode about, being in Spain. And that was like in Madrid, just outside of Madrid. That was like my first true travel experience. Yeah. And I mean, we'll talk a little bit about like our money stories in our family, and they're different, and there's also some similarities. But for me, going on that trip, like, I was like, I can't afford this. And who am I to be gallivanting around Europe? Like, I think the first time my parents went to Europe was like a year ago or so. Yeah. And I was scared. And even though I remember our friend Ashley was like, it's the same price, if not cheaper, than if you stay for the summer and do classes. It was so hard, so we talk about this all the time, but kind of, I'll share mine too, but like, what was your kind of like money story growing up, and how did that kind of impact, in your adult life?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I didn't grow up with much money. We had what we needed, but definitely there was a stress point or an understanding that there wasn't enough money, or that, we just couldn't afford nice things or really much of anything. So, when I was growing up, my parents they got into a little bit of debt, and we definitely had bill collectors, I would call at times. And I didn't really have a really clear understanding. I just knew that, we didn't have a surplus, and that there was always a little bit of struggle. And so, that made it difficult, but it made me hyper aware when I was super young that I didn't want to put myself in that situation. And then, I had other family members that were better with money, and, they seemed like they were in a better situation, and friends that had, nicer houses and nicer things. And I remember thinking, man, I want that for myself someday. So how can I be really responsible? Which is weird, because I was really conscious of it, probably younger than I should have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So when I got my first job, I became a super saver, and, planned to go to college. And I think that kind of propelled me into, trying to be successful and trying to make sure that I wasn't put in that situation. And I didn't have like a huge a huge goal necessarily. I just wanted to be comfortable, and I didn't want to have to think about or worry about money in a general sense. And,
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this like for years and years, but our money stories again are, similar and different. Mine was more so like there is money, but we don't use it. We don't touch it. It's going to run out at some point. It's a finite thing, and it's scary. And, we have to be really cheap and buy the cheaper things in life. And we're not the kind of people who spend a lot of money or do we went on like cruises, which was really nice, but nicer than what a lot of people get to do. But it was very much like, because this is the most economical thing to do. Like that was kind of always like the lens. And there was always a lot of stress around, like, let's check the bank accounts every day and let's do all of this. And it's so crazy. I mean, we talk about it all the time, and I think about this all the time now, like how much the things that happen in your childhood, really do impact, your money story in your adulthood. So, okay, we went back 20 years. So now, we became friends. I went back to South Florida. We stayed in touch. What made you, I know you always wanted to go to law school, but like, what was kind of the pivotal moment where you're like, okay, now I'm going to go, let's kind of do this?
Yeah. So I think when you're little, you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be when you grow up. And I think I was always a little feisty when I was growing up. And I loved the idea of learning about just a lot of other things, like just different subjects. And I thought pretty young, like what's a type of job that I could do that would give me flexibility and could kind of give me the ability to learn different things. Certainly specialize. And I don't know if I quite understood exactly how that specialization worked with law.
Yeah.
But I knew that there were people that were attorneys that own their own business, that were teachers, that, did different types of law. So that was pretty attractive to me. And then, of course, when I was growing up, like a lot of people do, like, oh, you should be an attorney. You're sassy. So, I kind of went through that track. And when you're younger too, people say, oh, are you going to be a doctor or a lawyer? And so I picked one. I picked the one that didn't have to do with people's bodies or keeping people alive. So yeah, I had my mind that I wanted to do it. And I kind of stuck with that idea up until I graduated college, and we were kind of in a recessionary period in 2008 when I graduated, in undergrad. And I did have a lot of people that were kind of naysayers saying, are you sure you want to do this? Is this a good path? It's really expensive. And I had a little bit of doubt myself, and I thought, I'm going to take a year off. I don't want to get burned out. And sometimes I'm not sure if that was the right choice or not, because I took a little bit more. I think I took a couple of years off, and I was kind of battling with myself, is it worth taking on the debt? That was a big thing because I had that money story with my family, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get scholarships for undergrad. So when I was going into law school, I knew I was going to be taking on a significant amount of debt to get into school and to pay for my living during school. So, but then I thought about it and I thought, okay, I have two choices. I can do it and see what happens. Or I can never do it and then feel like it's something that I said I was going to do, but then I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I think I would have probably always thought about that and like held it against myself or whatever. And at that point, you had already started law school. So, I definitely talked to you about it because I knew that you had a different mindset of it. And you were like, just do it,
Yep.
And so it was easier knowing that I had somebody going through that same process. And same thing, people are like, oh, you're not going to be able to find work or whatever it is. But I thought by the time I graduate, I'm going to have another 40 years to work. Am I really going to be able to go 40 years or 50 years and not ever find a job in my field? So I think that kind of, helped calm my nerves a little bit.
It's just so fascinating to me that people throw out this advice. And I think usually, it's people that love us, care about us, mean well. But I just think it's so crazy when I'm mentoring or coaching, like, and giving advice, like, I'm always very hesitant to ever give blanket advice because you could really change the trajectory of someone's life and career and scare them from like ever taking a leap.
Yeah.
You know, it's just wild to me. I'm glad you took the leap. I mean, I know we always talked about starting a business. I don't know if we fully knew we would start a law firm together.
The business ideas that we had they were out there. We were like, let's do a combo business where we have real estate and then people can come in and do their dry cleaning.
Get their nails done. Go to happy hour.
Yeah.
I still think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too. But whatever it was, I think we both had kind of you definitely had more of an entrepreneurial spirit than me, but the idea of it was cool. And we always were super interested in like real estate and all of that. So I think it's pretty cool to see where we were then and where we are now. And it's just the thought of it being 20 years it's just not possible.
Sounds impossible. No, we're far too young. So when you were in law school and like getting out of law school, how did you kind of figure out what you wanted to do and like your practice area and things like that?
So I had worked for a large bank before I went to law school. So, during 2008 recession, it was just so obvious that there was so much need for foreclosure work. And, there was a lot of attorneys that were working for various banks handling those cases. So I just thought, this is the reality now. And, maybe I can leave and come back and have similar hours and benefits, but, be an attorney for the company that I was working for. So, that was a thought. I wasn't necessarily set on that. And then when I went into law school, I remember thinking, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. Let's just see what I like. And the more that I did different types of internships, I really started to get an idea of like, what's the type of law that you can go home every night and feel good about? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to help people. I didn't want to just make money. And I didn't necessarily need to be in a courtroom. We've talked about this. So, I kind of tried out different internships and I'd worked for a couple judges and I got to see, these are really interesting to watch, or, I love a good crime podcast, but I didn't necessarily want that to be my everyday weighing on me when I went home.
Yeah, for sure.
So I took a trust and estates class. I really liked it. I liked kind of how clear it was and how you could do this very specific planning. And I really understood it. I had a great teacher. And then when I was getting out of school, I had a friend that worked for the trust company for the bank that I had worked for. So I applied. And when I was getting out of law school, I just thought, I know a lot of people don't feel like this, but I had major imposter syndrome. And I just thought like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm like done? And now you're just going to like put me somewhere and I'm going to start working.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? So, I think that was a scary awakening. And I had a class where, we had this big project and it was a group project. And the teacher at the end, said, "Oh, that was great, but you committed malpractice."
Oh my God.
So I remember that, really stick in my head the last semester. I was like, oh God.
What was do you remember what it was? Like,
no, I mean, it was some sort of negotiation and trial class that we were taking. And we missed one of the most pertinent case laws that went to the argument. And so I don't remember if that made us lose more, or I just know that it was the word malpractice just stuck in my head.
Yeah, that's scary. To tell like a law student.
And I remember sitting in the library with one of my best friends, and we were just like, how do we do this? How do you be a lawyer? Who's going to teach you, and how are you going to make sure you do it right? And so I think that was the scariest thing for me. I feel like the newer generation of students, to me, seem a lot more prepared for kind of becoming and stepping into that role. But I certainly didn't feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't either.
I was like, please, someone give me money.
I was like, you're going to pay me money? Oh, wow. Great. I'll take it. I think I mentioned on a prior episode, like my first two jobs, I tried to negotiate. They're just like, no. And I'm like, okay, I'll just take it then. Thank you.
I mean, I did the same thing, but I think that's something that is really important. And when you get a little experience but you have to have the gusto to try to negotiate. Why not? The worst thing someone's going to say is no. And what if they say yes? And I've had instances where I've decided to negotiate and I thought, oh, I'm just going to go maybe a little bit higher and they'll meet me somewhere in the middle. And then, they said, okay.
Yeah.
So.
And I think even if they say no, it's good practice.
Sure.
It's a good muscle, to exercise. And then when comp, discussion comes up the next year, they already know. They know that you can negotiate and they know you might, be getting underpaid a little bit or know your value. And that's kind of what happened to me when I went into Big Law because I tried to negotiate and they also were like, no. I think I got like $5,000. I'm like, for tolls and gas and whatever. And they're like, okay, fine. But when time rolled around the next year and they're like, she's going to realize that she's underpaid. And then they gave me like a huge raise because I at least said something, I tried. And, it's hard though. It's hard.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different in the corporate world since I really didn't practice right off the bat. You kind of get your salary when you come in and then you're not necessarily with certain jobs or the types of job that I was working. You were going to probably get your 3% maybe, and maybe you get a bonus, but that bonus was going to look similar every year. And the real way to have upward mobility would be to move around. I moved around a little bit in the same company and then, moving to other places. And something that they really drilled into our head in law school was that you don't want to move around. You don't want, it was like, don't be a legal harlot. And,
I sure was.
so, you get this advice and you think, well, I don't want this to make me look bad. But then I started seeing the people that were moving around and they were really leveraging their current pay to, compare it against other companies that were willing to pay for the experience and then use their experience against someone else. And those are the people that were really making big strides in their income. And, I had a mentor and a manager kind of tell me that that's what she did in the corporate world too. And I knew in the back of my head that if I wanted to significantly increase my salary, I was going to have to do that.
Yeah. So what were the different roles that you had within the bank?
So I worked out of law school. I was a trust administrator. So I assisted a main trust officer on accounts that we had. We had some trust accounts and then some investment accounts or a combination for different clients. So we were acting as a corporate trustee, sometimes with another family member. Sometimes we were the sole corporate trustee. So if somebody wanted to name the bank instead and kind of take that power away from family members and have a totally unbiased third party, they would have us step in. And then if the beneficiaries wanted money or wanted certain distributions, we would have to kind of go over that request, see if it made sense based on the assets in the trust and say yes or no. And clients didn't like the no's. So
what do you mean I can't get a Lamborghini?
But it was,
how dare you?
Yeah, but it was a good opportunity, and it was. I was super interested to kind of be in that wealth management space to learn more about it. It always felt pretty inaccessible to me as a younger individual and somebody that didn't grow up with wealth. So I try to just absorb as much of the information and figure out, how do I use this in my life from an asset management standpoint. And then, just understanding the different types of documents and, working with clients, some difficult, some great, some difficult and great. But yeah, so it was great exposure. And then eventually we had an opportunity open up in the estate settlement division where we were really doing more of the probate portion or the final distributions from a trust. And that was a little bit more legal based and had more of a specific path of a beginning and an end. So I was really attracted to that. Plus, it was just an opportunity to learn something new, which I'm always attracted to. I can get a little bored if I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So I moved over into that group. It was a promotion, which was great. And I learned a lot. I got to work with a lot of different types of clients. I got to work with a lot of different types of assets. And yeah. So,
and you have some crazy stories that you now tell our clients and potential clients to give them examples.
Don't do this.
Of what not to do.
Yeah. So, but, I think one of the things that was so interesting for me now that I'm on the other side of the spectrum was, I always felt like, I certainly felt like an imposter going into law school, working my first job in a corporate setting, but I felt like a fake lawyer. I took the bar exam, I passed, I did all those things, but, I really thought, well, I'm not really an attorney, or I didn't want to tell people because I felt like I was like telling them something that wasn't true. And then when we transitioned over and I started doing this business with you, I thought it was going to be this big shift, or I was going to feel so different. And it's kind of more of the same, just in a slightly different hat.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And I just wanted to start a business with you no matter what, but I also saw the value in all the skills that you had learned, all the knowledge that you had, all the experience that you had working with difficult clients, beneficiaries, complex probates, all of that. And I was like, that is all so freaking valuable as we build this business. And so that's why I was just like, we got to partner. We got to do this. And I think that's one of the reasons, we're a year and a half in and we are doing really well. And it is exciting. And even imposter syndrome for me, I'm like, oh my God, we're doing well. Obviously we're doing well. We have a lot of experience. We know what we're talking about. We're hardworking. We care. We have value. We have values. We like our clients, all the things that would be a recipe for success, obviously, but it still is surprising sometimes to be like, wow.
Yeah, I think there's so many things in life that sound impossible.
Yeah.
What do you mean we're just going to create this thing from nothing, or that you're going to go to law school, or you're going to do all these things, and then after you do it, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I could do that too.
And what's so crazy? You get out of law school and obviously you don't know how to practice law. Right. You've learned some things in your classes and you've learned some things in internships. So more than you did the day you start law school, but you don't know very much at all. And it's so fascinating that we're so hard on ourselves in that moment rather than thinking this is normal. I don't know everything and I can learn in a job, in a company. And that back in the day, back when lawyers began, you had years that you would be an apprentice and you would learn. And now it's I think even some law firms kind of expect you to just know what you're doing, or maybe they don't. I don't know. I kind of had a little bit of that experience, but you're new, and how would it be any other way? And you get to learn. So I think it's so much of shifting, that perception and everything.
Right.
So we've kind of talked about, when we met and then going to law school and your career trajectory and then us starting, the law firm together a year and a half ago. How would you say your money story has kind of each season of that journey affected you or impacted?
Yeah. So I think originally I just was trying to save enough to be able to go to school. That was my main goal. And to just have a little bit of an emergency fund. I was always very aware of that. I worked a lot during undergrad. I think I may have missed out on some of the experiences that people had in undergrad, but, I was super focused on, I need to make sure that I don't have any debt. Debt was very bad. And then I had to shed that or shelf that when I went to law school because I knew I was intentionally going into debt.
Right.
I'm like, YOLO, here we go. So then I had to kind of compartmentalize the debt that I was taking out and making it feel more like a mortgage, because most people don't feel really guilty about taking out a mortgage for a home because they think, oh, this is an investment. This is something that's supposed to, help take care of me for my life, and everybody needs a home. So I had to think about that in a similar way for my education. So I was like, okay, let's let's put that to the side. I took out loans and I worked a little in law school, but not a ton, and definitely not enough to sustain myself.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of school, I kind of shifted back into, okay, now I need to go into, saving mode and kind of paying off some of the debt or credit cards that I had to use some of that money to just survive. I mean, they don't really give you enough to be able to study for the bar and pay your bills during that time. Like your student loan money is gone at that point, so,
yeah.
And then, once I was able to establish that emergency fund and get kind of just that peace of mind that if I had a flat tire or if I had some sort of, small or medium size emergency that I was fine, that it wasn't going to ruin my month or week or, whatever those bills I was going to have. And I lived lean. I tried to be smart about money and not go, get the nicest, newest things now that I was an attorney. And so I think now I'm at peace. And now I want to grow my wealth and I want to do it from like more of a positive way. I'm not doing it from a place of fear as much anymore. Now it's what can we accomplish?
Yeah. And like when we started the firm, because, we both left well-paying corporate, secure jobs to start this law firm, which is very entrepreneurial. I didn't bring any clients with me. And obviously that really wasn't how it was going to work with the bank. So we were really starting from scratch, you know, and I know we've talked about this a ton, but like, what was that like for you taking that jump off the cliff?
I would love to lie and say that it was super comfortable. It felt like a step back mentally for me. At that point I got a therapist and I was like, oh my God, I'm going through all these transitions. What am I doing with my life? And kind of that security blanket of knowing, I had money coming in and I was saving it and then I was able to spend if I wanted. But for the most part, I was, packing it away like a little squirrel. So seeing that money, having to pull it out, like I knew it was there. I knew I had some security and I knew that security came with opportunities and the ability to be able to take, a risk and start a business or do something, just different.
Yeah.
So I was super grateful for that. But then, every week or every month when we were, are we going to pay each other or pay ourselves?
And there's a lot of weeks or even months that we weren't able to do that, either because we were slow as we were building or, there's a lot of expenses, when you start a business.
So I think once I was able, I didn't necessarily think it wasn't going to work. I just didn't know how long it was going to take and how much of the savings that was my mental safety net.
Right.
What was I going to have to extract from that? Whereas I could have been putting money into it during that time. And once I got over that, and now I feel okay because like I got taken off the IV drip.
Yeah, it's addictive. That every 2 weeks paycheck or whatever it is, it's coming in, what your bills are. Like it's a safety net. I mean, maybe in some ways a false one because we were talking about this the other day. You could lose your job and I mean, you could always get a new one, but nothing is guaranteed, but it's that consistency, and it's coming in as opposed to we have to go out and build it and find it. And the opportunity can be, and I think very certainly is much, much higher than if we would have stayed in our jobs. Yeah. But it takes time and it's scary.
And I'm sure my therapist got tired of hearing about it. I'm like,
like this is what I'm paying you for.
Am I sure like I'm going to be able to weather this through? And then, like you pivot and you figure it out. And so now we're starting to get to more of the wealth building phase again. And that's really exciting. But I think, there's some people that open a business and they explode and they rocket up and they're making tons of money right away and they have this amazing success story. And I think that those are great. But I think for a lot of people, from the different individuals that we've talked to, different entrepreneurs, their story is a little different. It's not as exciting. It's the like, I didn't pay myself for a bit and, I was lean for a while and I had to
sometimes
trudge
years.
through.
Sometimes years.
Right. And, that's one of the best things my therapist told me very early on was it's going to take probably on average about 2 years to get your business really stable and to be in a good place. And that like a lot of people in that time just, figure out whether their business is going to fail or not. So,
yeah. And there's something to be said for the fact that we both made sure we were financially secure and we had that safety net. So if we didn't make it in 6 months, or if we weren't able to pay ourselves consistently in the first year, we didn't have to just put our tail between our legs and go crawling back, to our jobs. But
you could, and that's the thing. You can always, and even during that time, I thought, I can do doc review or I can do some other type of job.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in college and law school, I had a cleaning business and I was, cleaning homes for people. And I really didn't have any ego about that. I remember just thinking, whatever I need to do to make ends meet or to push myself in a forward momentum, I do it. I don't care. So I think knowing that is my personality type, I knew I'm going to work somewhere.
Right.
So.
Right. I love it. No, it's 20 years ago, friendship anniversary, a year and a half into our law firm. And it'll be so cool to come back and like a year from now and sit down and talk
like
about
our treasure trove.
I know, like where are we now and what other lessons have we learned? And, it's just, I don't know. It's just like pinch me, to have gone through all of that together and be sitting here now. And first of all, I'm very impressed that we did not curse this entire episode. I did not do that
You're
unintentionally.
Just I didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that too. Like, that's amazing. And I think just to kind of close it out, I mean, I'm so happy that we get to spend every day together, at least every working day and some weekend days too. And
we just use this as an excuse for our partners. So we're going to hang out every day, but this is business.
It's the best. We're like, why do we do this sooner? So I just have to say, I love you. I love owning a business with you. Happy 20 freaking years of friendship. Yeah. And thanks for listening to 20 and watching. I know, to 20 more and hopefully more than that. But let's not kill ourselves off in our 50s.
But if you do have an estate plan.
Yes, then just make sure. Well, thanks everyone for listening and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Kristen, Landon, Esquire. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.